Hi, friends. It was a cold and quiet morning in a small town in Denmark. The streets were empty, but outside St. Peter's Church, a shocking scene was unfolding. An elderly couple stood trembling, their eyes swollen from crying. They had been standing outside the church for hours, begging for answers, but no one was willing to listen. Their two daughters had gone missing. For 7 days, the church had been mysteriously shut down, something that had never happened before. People in the town whispered rumors, but no one truly knew what had caused the sudden closure. The church, once a place of worship and peace, was now surrounded by fear and silence. The old mother, her hands shaking, raised them in prayer. Her voice was weak but filled with sorrow as she cried out, "O Allah, return my daughters to me. I know they are inside." Her husband, barely able to stand, knocked on the church doors once again. No answer. As time passed, more people started gathering around. The town's Christian families, who had always looked up to the church, now stood in confusion and disbelief. Why was the church closed? What had happened inside? And where were the two missing Muslim girls? 7 days ago, everything seemed normal. The sisters were given a high-paying job at the church, 5,000 a month for simple cleaning. They were hesitant at first, but poverty had left them with no choice. Their parents warned them not to go, but the girls reassured them. "We are strong in our faith. Nothing will change us." But now they were gone. No one could have imagined what happened behind those locked church doors. And when the truth finally came out, it shocked the entire town to its core. In a small town in Denmark, there was a neighborhood where only one Muslim family lived. An elderly couple and their two young daughters had moved there recently, escaping hardship in search of a better life. But life here was not easy. The father, once a hard-working man, had grown weak with age and illness. His frail body could no longer support the family, and their savings had nearly run out. The mother struggled to provide meals, often going hungry herself to feed her daughters. Seeing their parents suffering, the two sisters made a decision. "We will find work," the elder sister said. "We have no other choice," the younger one agreed. They searched everywhere for jobs, but no one was willing to hire two young Muslim women. Then they heard about Lady Father Alicia, the powerful and wealthy female priest who ran St. Peter's Church. She was known for her strict Christian beliefs, but also for her generous donations and charity work. Desperate, the girls gathered their courage and knocked on the church doors. A tall, pale woman with sharp blue eyes and an intimidating smile opened the door. "What do you want?" Her voice was cold yet polite. The elder sister spoke nervously. "We need work. Our family is struggling." Lady Father Alicia narrowed her eyes. Muslim girls. She had never employed one before. To her, Muslims were inferior, people who did not belong in her town. But these girls were young, beautiful, and desperate. A twisted thought crossed her mind. "Come inside," she said, forcing a smile. The girls hesitated but stepped in. They had no idea what they were walking into. Inside St. Peter's Church, the atmosphere was grand yet unsettling. The walls were lined with towering statues of saints, and the air smelled of burning candles and old wood. Lady Father Alicia led the two girls into a dimly lit office. She sat behind an ornate wooden desk, her cold blue eyes studying them. "You need work?" she repeated, tapping her fingers on the table. The elder sister nodded quickly. "Yes, anything. We just need to support our parents." Alicia smirked, then leaned forward. "I have a job for you. I will pay each of you 5,000 per month." The girls' eyes widened in shock. $5,000. That was more money than they had ever dreamed of. Their mother wouldn't have to struggle anymore. Their father could get treatment. But there had to be a catch. The younger sister hesitated. What do we have to do?" Alicia smiled. Simple. You will clean the church, sweep the floors, dust the pews, keep everything spotless. The girls exchanged glances. It seemed too easy. Then Alicia's smile faded. Her voice turned serious. But you must follow my rules. You will work in silence. You will never question what happens here. And most importantly, she paused, staring at them coldly. You will never speak of Islam inside these walls. The sisters felt uneasy, but poverty left them with no choice. We accept. Lady Father Alicia grinned. They had just sealed their fate. The next morning, the two sisters arrived at St. Peter's Church for their first day of work. Dressed in simple clothes with their scarves neatly wrapped, they stepped inside with a sense of unease. The grand church was silent, except for the distant echoes of whispered prayers. The girls picked up their cleaning tools and got to work, sweeping the cold marble floors, dusting the heavy wooden benches, and polishing the golden candlesticks. At first, no one paid them much attention, but soon they began to notice the nuns watching them. Soft giggles turned into whispers. Whispers turned into laughter. And then one of the nuns walked past them and muttered loud enough for all to hear. Muslims in a church? How amusing. Another nun chuckled. I wonder if their God will save them from doing dirty work. The sisters exchanged glances but remained silent. They had promised their parents that their faith was strong, that they wouldn't be affected by the things they heard. But it wasn't just the mockery. The strangest thing was how the nuns would disappear into the locked section of the church. Lady Father Alicia would spend hours behind that door, never explaining what she was doing. One afternoon, as the girls took a short break, they found themselves in a quiet corner of the church. The younger sister noticed a small, worn-out Bible on the bench. She flipped through the pages and smiled. Did you know that even their book talks about our prophets? Before she could say more, a sharp voice cut through the air. Silence. Lady Father Alicia marched toward them, her eyes furious. You will never speak of your religion inside these walls again, she hissed, or you will regret it. The sisters lowered their heads and nodded, but deep inside, fear had already begun to settle in. The sisters had been working at St. Peter's Church for several days now, but something felt off. The nuns were cold and distant. The locked doors in the church remained a mystery, and Lady Father Alicia's eyes carried a strange glint, as if she was waiting for something. One evening, after finishing their work, the girls packed their bags to leave. But just as they reached the door, Alicia blocked their path. You cannot leave tonight, she said, her voice eerily calm. The sisters hesitated. Why not? Alicia's lips curled into a small smile. We are expecting important guests. The church must remain perfect. You will stay here tonight. The elder sister frowned. We need to inform our parents. Alicia waved her hand dismissively. I already called them. They know you are safe. The girls exchanged a nervous glance. Something didn't feel right, but they had no choice. That night, the church felt different. The candles flickered strangely. The air felt thick and heavy. Somewhere beyond the locked door, low voices whispered in a language they didn't understand. The younger sister shivered. I don't like this. The elder one nodded. We will leave in the morning. Neither of them knew that this night would change their lives forever, and by morning they would no longer be seen again. The next morning, St. Peter's Church opened as usual, but the two Muslim sisters were nowhere to be seen. At home, their elderly parents waited anxiously. They had not heard from their daughters all night. Worry turned to fear as the day passed with no sign of them. By evening, the parents could wait no longer. They hurried to the church, knocking frantically on the heavy wooden doors. After a long silence, Lady Father Alicia appeared. Her expression was cold, unreadable. Where are our daughters? The mother cried. They were supposed to return home. Alicia sighed dramatically, shaking her head. "Oh, you poor people, didn't you hear?" The old father frowned. "Hear what?" Alicia leaned against the doorway, her blue eyes sharp with cruel amusement. "Your daughters ran away." The words hit the parents like a dagger to the heart. "That's a lie," the mother screamed. "Our daughters would never do such a thing." Alicia pretended to look sympathetic. "I warned you about them, didn't I? Young girls, all alone, working in a church. I saw them whispering with boys, acting strangely. It was only a matter of time before they left." A crowd had started to gather. Townspeople, curious about the commotion, whispered among themselves. Alicia raised her voice for all to hear. "They are young, foolish girls. They ran away, leaving their old parents behind. It is not our fault." The whispers turned into murmurs of judgment. "Typical. They were Muslims. Can't trust them. Maybe they eloped." The elderly parents begged and pleaded, but no one listened. Instead, they were met with mocking glances and cruel words. And so the world believed the nuns' lie, while the truth remained hidden inside the church's locked doors. The townspeople, already suspicious of the Muslim family, found Alicia's words easy to believe. The sisters were gone, and now their parents stood in the streets, pleading for justice. But no one was willing to listen. Alicia's false story spread like wildfire. The two Muslim girls had run away, abandoning their old, helpless parents. Rumors twisted the truth, making it sound worse with each telling. They must have been meeting boys in secret. Muslim girls are known for dishonoring their families. The father is just pretending to be innocent. Soon, anger boiled into hatred. The crowd turned on the elderly couple. "You brought shame to our town," someone yelled. "You should have controlled your daughters," another spat. The poor father, his frail body trembling, tried to defend his daughters. "They are innocent. They didn't run away," he pleaded. "This is a lie." But his voice was drowned by the rising shouts. And then violence erupted. A man shoved the old mother. She stumbled, falling onto the hard ground. Blood trickled from a deep cut on her forehead. The father rushed to help her, but a sharp kick struck his leg, sending him to the ground as well. People grabbed their few belongings and threw them onto the streets. "Get out! You don't belong here. Take your filth elsewhere." Through the pain, the mother looked up, her face streaked with tears. She lifted her hands in prayer. "Oh Allah, take revenge for my daughters." With broken hearts and broken bodies, the old couple was forced to leave their home. Their daughters were still missing, and the truth remained buried behind the church's locked doors. The old mother and father sat on the cold streets, abandoned and humiliated. Their daughters were nowhere to be found, and the town had turned against them. The mother's eyes burned with grief, her heart filled with unbearable pain. She knew something terrible had happened. "My daughters didn't run away," she whispered to herself. "That nun, she has done something to them." Her trembling hands clenched into fists as she gazed at the towering church in front of her. The same church where her daughters had last been seen. The heavy wooden doors stood shut, guarding a secret only Lady Father Alicia knew. Tears streaming down her face, she raised her hands towards the sky and called out in a voice filled with sorrow and fury. "O Allah, you are the greatest. You are the most just. If this woman has harmed my daughters, then let the heavens rain down your punishment upon her." Her voice echoed in the empty streets. People passed by, sneering at her pain. Some laughed, some shook their heads, but no one cared. Inside the church, Alicia stood by the window, watching. A strange chill ran down her spine. For the first time since the girls disappeared, she felt something she never had before. Fear. The mother lowered her hands, her body shaking. "Allah will take my revenge." And as she and her husband sat in the darkness, a terrible storm began to gather in the sky. 7 days had passed. The town had moved on, believing the nuns' lie that the two Muslim girls had run away. Their elderly parents, homeless and broken, still sat near the church, refusing to leave. The mother never stopped praying. She whispered prayers of justice under her breath, her eyes fixed on the church doors. And then something strange happened. That morning, St. Peter's Church was suddenly shut down. A notice was posted on the heavy wooden doors. The church will remain closed until further notice. People were confused. Why would the town's most powerful church suddenly shut down? Whispers spread quickly. Did something happen inside? Where is Lady Father Alicia? Why won't anyone answer? The old mother's heart pounded. She knew something was wrong. As night fell, the air grew heavy. The sky, once calm, turned dark and stormy. And then the ground trembled. A deep rumble shook the streets, making the townspeople rush out of their homes in panic. "An earthquake!" someone screamed. But the shaking was not like a normal earthquake. The church trembled the most, its stained glass windows rattling violently. Then a loud cracking sound echoed through the air. The massive wooden doors of the church split apart and collapsed to the ground. The old couple gasped. The church had been sealed shut for a week, yet now its doors had been forcefully opened. A chill ran through the crowd. The mother's hands shook, her lips moving in silent prayer. Something inside that church was about to be revealed, and the truth would leave the entire town in shock. As the church doors lay shattered on the ground, a deadly silence spread through the crowd. The townspeople stood frozen, staring into the darkness beyond the entrance. Then a faint cry echoed from inside. A woman's voice, weak, trembling. "Help us!" the old mother gasped. "My daughters!" she cried, rushing forward. The townspeople, filled with fear and curiosity, followed her into the church. Candles flickered, shadows danced, and then someone spotted the hidden door at the back of the hall, a secret passage leading underground. A few men forced it open, revealing a set of stone stairs leading downward. What they saw next made them gasp in horror. A hidden dungeon, dark, damp, and filled with caged women. In the center, the two Muslim sisters hung from metal chains, their bodies weak, their clothes torn, their faces covered in bruises. The old mother collapsed in tears, screaming their names. As the men rushed to free the girls, one of them spotted something even more disturbing. A wooden altar covered in blood, with strange symbols carved into it. It wasn't just a church, it was a place for dark rituals. The crowd recoiled in horror. The truth was out. Lady Father Alicia and her people had been using the church for unholy purposes, and now justice was coming for them. Gasps of horror and disbelief filled the air as the townspeople stared at the dungeon beneath the church. The two Muslim sisters trembled, their bodies weak, as they were finally freed from their chains. Their tear-streaked faces told a story of 7 days of terror, but they weren't the only ones. Other young girls, trapped in cages, cried for help. Some were too weak to move, their eyes hollow with suffering. Then, amidst the chaos, someone shouted, "There, the nun!" All eyes turned to the back of the room. Lady Father Alicia stood frozen, her face pale as death. She had been caught. Her flowing robes were stained, and in her hands she clutched a ritualistic dagger. This was no ordinary church. It was a place of sacrifice. One of the men lunged forward, grabbing her by the arm. "What have you done?" he roared. Alicia's lips trembled, but she said nothing. There was no way out now. The crowd erupted in rage. "She deceived us. This church was a trap for innocent girls. She must be punished." The police were called. Alicia and her fellow priests were dragged out of the dungeon in chains. The two Muslim sisters clung to their parents, sobbing. They had barely escaped a fate worse than death, and the town would never be the same again.